The Toronto Blue Jays took on the Baltimore Orioles today in spring training action. We saw some okay things out of the pitching staff, saw some great things out of the offense later on in the game, but we also have some question marks heading into the season. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. I want to thank you all for the support that we've gotten over these past few games, over the entirety of spring training, really. It's been unbelievable. The support in the pregame streams, the support in the postgame reaction videos, it's been unreal, and we want to thank you all. Today was a kind of a weird game for the Jays. It started off real slow. It was a little boring, but then it really picked up towards the late innings there.
Yeah, I'm just grateful baseball's back. And yeah, like you said, the support's been great in the live streams. And make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 7,000 subscribers and hopefully hit that before opening day or maybe over the next month or two. But thank you for the support. And let's just get into the first topic of today's game, which is a question we'll start by asking. And we'll cover the pitching as well in this topic is should we worry about Chris Bassitt? Now, I'll pop up the pitching staff numbers here. Chris Bassitt went 3 innings, gave up 3 runs, did indeed have 5 strikeouts. You had Basitt going to inning, Romano. We'll cover the rest in a second here. But what were your thoughts on Chris Bassitt today? And I guess you can answer the question of if you think it's time to worry or if it's just the spring training.
Well, he started off okay, and then he balked, and then he really started to fall apart. Like it distracted him. He was picking off. He's trying to pick off runners, and he kind of lost his location of the strike zone as well. His movement was good, but he was hanging a lot of pitches, and even this curveball that you're about to see right now, that's a hanging breaker, and it moves a lot, and it's a slow Uncle Charlie type breaking ball, but that's like right in the happy zone for a hitter.
Yeah.
So he's been struggling a little bit with keeping pitches up middle, and I don't know if it's time to worry, but the stuff is not necessarily good enough for him to miss his location.
Yeah, he obviously relies a lot of control, a lot of movement. He has tons of pitches. I think I saw a tweet today saying he has like 8 variations of pitches, which is
Yeah.
insane. And it's a similar thing to Hyunjin Ryu. It's if you're not able to locate and you're not able to have good movement, then you're not going to blow anyone away. So I don't think it's time to worry. It is still spring training, and he did strike out the side in the first inning. But at the same time, it is a little bit concerning. But I don't know. I'm not too worried about it. He's a veteran, and again, it's just spring training. But there are some red flags if you're I guess, not a super optimistic fan.
Absolutely. And another thing we got to note is that it was a very weak lineup for the Baltimore Orioles, aside from Taryn
Gunner.
Vavra and Gunnar Henderson. So, yeah, I don't know. He didn't look very sharp. He didn't look very sharp in his first outing either. And hopefully, this is not a trend. I was listening to some other baseball podcast, and they just said they don't trust Chris Bassitt. Now, I'm not too familiar with him because he was on the Mets, and before that, he was on the Oakland A's. And hopefully he can figure out the location. But like you said, Hyunjin Ryu, that's a pretty good comparison for him. And Ryu, he lost his location a little bit before he got Tommy John surgery, and then he was getting hit around all around the
Yeah.
ballpark, and he just did not look like the same pitcher that won an ERA title. So I'm a little worried about Chris Bassitt because of the lack of umph in his stuff, but hopefully he can figure it out by the season.
Yeah, I just have faith in him just because he's a veteran, and I'm sure he's had some rough spring trainings before. But covering the rest of the pitchers here today before we move on to the offense, Eisner had a great outing. He had, he looked pretty good out there. Obviously, he's a lefty, and again, he has a 5.4 ERA. And if you look at Chris Bassitt, he's up to a 6.75 ERA in the spring. Jordan Romano, solid. Hayden Jenger, 0.1 of an inning. Trevor Richards did give up a run, so his hot start is over. Jimmy Burnett continues to impress to a degree. He obviously gave up 2 hits, but and then Peacock there. So anyone else impress you before we move on to the hitting in today? A lot of high ERAs there on the right.
Yeah, I'm really liking Hayden Yanger so far, and even though his ERA is really high, I've liked his location. He's been hit around a little bit because I think he's relying a little bit too much on his fastball and trying to blow guys away, and that doesn't work at the major league level. So I like his location. I like the stuff that he has, like the 96 plus,
Yep.
good slider. So I think he's got a lot of promise, and there's a reason why he's a top 10 prospect for the Jays. And obviously Jordan Romano has looked pretty good so far in the spring.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess now we'll move on to the fun part, the hitting part. Of course, they put up 8 runs in today's game. The offense continues to shine, though they shined a bit later in the game today. They still they shined and they did very very good. So I'll pop up the box score now and have a few clips for you as well. George Springer with another home run brought his average up to 227, going 1 for 4. Bassitt unfortunately went 0 for 4, but he still has a 318 average. Brandon Belt is officially hitting 1,000 on the. He has not had an at bat where he's gotten out so far. This is obviously his first game. Chapman played well. Relvis Martinez continues to dominate, and Varsho, despite not getting a hit, is starting to see the ball really well, which I'm sure you'll touch on in a minute here. But who impressed you the most today? And I have a few clips to show, but I'll just get your thoughts first on who impressed you the most.
Definitely Brandon Belt because he looks healthy. It was the first time we saw him all spring. Obviously, he's not going to be a burner around the bases. He couldn't score off a single to right field, and we weren't expecting him to. But that was a good swing that he put on the ball. It was double in the left center gap. He's always been, a professional hitter, good eye at the plate, and he walked and hit a
Yep.
double. So
Yep.
solid first performance by Brandon Belt, and having a steady veteran in the middle of that lineup never hurts. Varsho was really starting to see the ball well. He struck out in his final at bat there, but he got a sacrifice fly. He walked. So he's really starting to see it, and he's a guy that really loves to hit high velocity fastballs. So I'm not worried about Dalton Varsho and his 200 average there. I think he's going to figure it out. We can't put too much stock into spring training. We've been on that train the entire time, but we're seeing some good things. And one guy really stood out to me, but we'll save that for a little bit later on in the video.
Yeah, and the box score was a bit cut off for a couple guys like Kiermaier and Espinal as well, but you can have a look at the full box score at MLB.com there. But what we will touch on, we have a few clips I'm going to show you now, which covers a lot of things. This was the Relvis Martinez home run, in case you missed it. An absolute moonshot to right center field, over 400 feet. And he has been very, very good. And Thomas Hall says Blue Jays Relvis Martinez continues to show off his 60 grade power. And I could see that even going up to 65 or 70 if he continues this at the minor league level at least. He's been unbelievable. We also have, of course, George Springer, who has also been unbelievable after his slow start. And it doesn't look like any injuries are hurting him. He gets a home run there. And then finally, Kevin Kiermaier will touch on the fielding a little bit. And this is what it was our first game today with the full outfield of Springer, Kiermaier, and Varsho. And it's looking very, very good out there. Obviously, Varsho had that weird ball that was played a bit weird, and it was a weird game overall. But any of those clips impressed you the most? Maybe the Relvis Martinez home run for me.
Yeah, just one on Varsho. I mean, there was a lot of wind, so
Yeah,
I
it
will
was weird.
chalk it up to that. There's a lot of wind, a lot of sun, so he's not used to playing in that ballpark just quite yet. So I'll give him a pass on that. I'm expecting some web gems from him all year long. Kevin Kiermaier is going to be a spark plug for the Toronto Blue Jays in the bottom of that lineup, and he's got so much energy in the field. He's always going 100 miles an hour out there, and he's been surprisingly very good with the bat. I mean, he's hitting 500 in the spring so far, but I don't expect him to keep that up through full 162. Obviously not. He'd be the greatest player of all time if he did that. But he bases extremely well. He's got some sneaky power in that bat, and he's a lefty, so it offers a different type of look at the bottom of that lineup. And I loved what I'm seeing out of him. And Aroldis Martinez, that power, man, it's really stood out so far in spring. And another thing that I want to note, that was to right center field, and you said it. I mean, he's been struggling just pulling the ball, and that's one thing that's been a knock on him his entire minor league career so far, is that he can't go to the opposite field, or that his power doesn't play as well to right or to right center. But if he can do that consistently, then yes, that power will go up to a 65 or even a 70 grade.
Yeah, it was very exciting to see, and a lot of highlights today. And like you said, Kiermaier's going to be he might be an X factor for this team. It's depending how far they go, because if he stays healthy, then the sky's the limit for the outfield. And let's quickly move on and touch on this before we do wrap up. The Jays obviously won this game, but Santiago Espinal, you wanted to touch on this. He continues to impress you, and I'll just let you have the floor here, and I'll let your thoughts on Santiago Espinal and maybe the battle that he has for the spot with Whit Merrifield, and if you think he can maintain it for the whole season.
Yeah, it's just more of a question that I want to ask you, Nick. Now, we saw Santiago Espinal really fade in the second half of last
Yep.
year. He had an all-star caliber first half, and that's why he made the team. He was voted in to be a spare on the all-star team, and very well deserved. But then he had a OPS under 650 in the second half, so he really faded away. He was a below average player in the second half. And I'm just wondering, can he sustain this level of play over a full 162? I tend to not think so. And I'll just give you the example of 2021 when he was playing kind of sporadically at third base for the Blue Jays, and he played 91 games and he hit over 300. So I think that's what we can expect out of him.
Yeah, and that's a good question. I'll ask you guys in the comments as well what Peter just said, but I don't know if he can maintain an all-star level throughout a whole 162. I don't think that's going to be the case. Though I think if we have, Whit Merrifield, Kevin Biggio, and if he plays 90 to 100 games or maybe some defensive replacements, that might suit him best where he can hopefully hit 290, 300, not put so much damage on his body, and then his skills can shine. He can always be, because he's one of the best, defensive players on our team. And I don't know. I don't think so, but I think that in a limited role, he could be very, very valuable. Or maybe some future telling here that he gets traded at the deadline for another need.
Maybe it's very possible, and I'm right there with you. I think 90 to 120 games is kind of the sweet spot for him. If he's playing 150 plus, then there's a little bit of a problem, and I don't think he will just because of the depth that there is on this team. But I think if you can keep him to around 100 games, then he's going to be fresh all year long, and that's when he's going to be at his most valuable.
I agree. I think that's the ideal situation. If everyone stays healthy, I think that's the play. And you ride Espinal when he's hot, and then when he's not hot, Whit Merrifield is kind of more. I think he'll be more steady throughout a whole season.
Yeah.
But that'll wrap up the video. Again, the support's been unbelievable. We have tons of content coming for you tomorrow. We have a stream for the pregame, a postgame reaction video, and Peter's also going to do a World Baseball Classic Canada postgame live stream. So make sure to tune into that. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in tomorrow's stream or videos.
Thanks.